Mediocre Hobbies Podcast, Season 2, Episode 13, The Smoothest Voice in Warhammer. Follow us online. Andy is at youtube.com/mediocre hobbies. Tom is at tomlandy.com. And of course Pete is at youtube.com/Pete the Wargamer.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yep.
Fantastic.
How's Pete getting on with his audio?
Oh, he'll figure it out. You know what it's like when we talk to somebody else.
Yes, apparently.
Hello.
There he is.
The Zoom was like asking me a dozen permissions to use microphones and cameras and everything. So
it does that. It changed. Yeah. Trying to start with Peachy the other day, it was like 10 minutes of him trying to figure it out.
Yeah, it was just like, oh, can we use your microphone? Do you want to use your computer audio? Do you want to dial in with a phone? It's like, no, computer audio. It's okay, well, let's just ask for a billion permissions for everything.
Yeah.
But yeah.
The GDPR now, everything's got to be asked twice and triple checked. And I do not do anything illegal. Therefore, you can have all my information to do whatever you want.
I don't know if you know this. I edit very heavily for reasons that will become obvious the more we speak.
You just got to edit out the not part, aren't you?
just go really quiet all of a sudden.
Yeah. We seem to have lost Pete. He's gone again. He's not going to reconnect now. Oh. Is that the green stuff for a lamp?
Yeah.
The arch one.
It's good.
Is it good?
It's white light in a very directed space. So yeah, I think it's cool.
Mm-hmm.
I'm tempted to try and get that red grass one. That looks really good. Everybody.
That's the one I've got. Yeah.
How is it?
It's really good, but it's expensive. That's the only kind of downside to it.
It's like 200 quid, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a good. The best thing for me is because obviously you've got the two kind of the gaps in between. So I
put a camera between it.
The camera between them. So I can angle them kind of like slightly in a little bit, and it looks really good then because it's like really close to the light and it's kind of almost surrounding it. So yeah, it's quite good for that. So it's good for filming.
I haven't set it up yet, but there is also this which attaches to the arch, which is basically a clamp for your phone. Yeah, you clamp your phone to it, and so I can take good pictures in good light. I just need to get used to it. So,
and is it like, do you trust the arch with your expensive phone and stuff? Is it okay? It's insured. It's fine.
That's what it falls off. It's only about 12 inches. Well, probably a little bit more, 18 inches, but not too far. You can more like to break the model you're painting than a phone.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. Yeah.
But I could do it breaking some more shit. I mean, room right now is full of boxes. I went through the last couple of days. So we're moving in 32 days is when I get the boat. We're moving back to the UK. I live in Ireland right now. And Christ, like so much stuff. Hang on. Just like
loose as well. Oh no.
Last nights, and I don't know what to do with them. I've got two. I'm not going to move because my mixing desk is sat on them. I've got two 84-liter really useful boxes right next to me, full to the gills.
Yes.
So it'll be fine.
The really useful boxes are your godsend. That's what you're going to need.
Yeah. I that's what I store all my extra bit like kits and stuff in that I'm not using at the moment. Just everything gets broken down into 9-liter useful boxes, and then it's got one of those little like it's like press label maker things. Just got those saying what it is, so I can just look at it and go exactly what's in there. So in the middle of I ordered 20, and 20 wasn't enough, so I ordered 30 more.
Yeah, they're never enough. They're just never enough. No. And it's like, I want to do the thing where all of my miniatures that aren't in cabinets are in those stacked. But it's like buying the case is another thing. Then it's buying all the magnet sheets, and then it's buying all the magnets, and then it's like, here, Magnet Barn, do you want any more sponsors or anything?
I definitely feel like really useful boxes are kind of like the 3D printers of storage, where 3D printing is a hobby into itself. And when you get really useful boxes, it is a hobby. And I think I spent a week looking at different foam manufacturers to find out which foam was the right width, because obviously we all use different foam, but I had a bunch of the blue, what is it?
It's the old army case one. Was
the cardboard box. I can't remember what they're called.
AK? No, AK.
No, I'll put it on screen.
But, KR Multicase, is it?
KR, yes.
Thank you very much. Yeah. The problem with KR Multicase, and they did great stuff, is that their single sheet is designed to be 2 half sheets. And so there's an extra layer of wall in the middle, and so it does not fit properly in the 84 liter. So I couldn't buy it, and that was a week of my life to learn that. But it's good fun.
That's a nightmare. Like, yeah, I think it's getting to that point now where I'm trying to avoid foam, because models are getting so crazy in shape and size these days that I don't want to put anything in foam anymore. It doesn't work. So
no,
everything's standing upright.
Yeah, I think I kind of got to the point when I was building Sylvaneth and just do all the little spiky bits and put those in foam. They're just gonna get snapped off anyway. So I magnetize everything. But again, that's like another hobby into itself, magnetizing everything. I got one of those. It's okay for storage, but it's better for transporting A cases that have like the shelves in, like the metal shelves that you slide in.
Yeah,
there's like a metal frame.
Still, to this day, I still have not constructed it yet.
He does this all the time. He'll just get up and walk away, and then it's just his chair.
I'll just walk off. I got sent the army paid the one from Green Stuff World.
Oh yeah,
it's flat pack right now, but I still haven't built it. That's the idea. I was worried that it's like MDF and how sturdy it was going to be, but I really must give it a try. But yeah, for sure the best way to store things. I think it was when I was going to a tournament with my Gloomspike Gitz army, and I was holding Boingrot Bounders. So they're squigs, and then the squigs are bounding, and then there's a goblin, and then there's a lance. And I'm like,
yeah,
this don't fit anywhere. I've got 15 of these things. Where are they going to go? Nightmare. Well, thank you so much for deciding to join us on our Merry podcast. Are you coming on more podcasts now? Was Peaches one of your first podcasts you really were on?
I've been on a few. I think it's the most recent one that I've been on. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
I think the painting phase stood out because we could see your face.
And yeah, probably. Yeah.
You are such an enigmatic man because obviously your voice is what's been on all your videos forever. So when we saw you on the painting phase, it was like, oh, he's real.
He's a real boy.
Not just an AI voice.
It's always funny because everyone always has this idea from watching my videos and obviously seeing my interaction online and of what I look like, and I'd say that most people seem to be surprised by what I look like compared to my voice. And I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. A lot of people say they expected me to be older, so that's good.
I think that's more of a jealousy thing. They expect someone that's like that good at making things to have many more years of experience to get to that level, and they're like, wait a minute, if he's younger than I am and 3 times as good, oh no.
I'm actually really old. I've just got I've got like I've got a portrait in the attic which is just aging for me instead.
I've got like this thing with hobby YouTubers, and it's kind of like a scale between like practicality and entertainment, and you annoy me so much because not only are you like the most practical YouTuber out there because you literally show people how to build a kit, but it's also incredibly entertaining when you get into the nitty-gritty of it, and you drive me mad, like literally, because not to top it off, like I love watching Squidmar, right? Because I'm never going to build a diorama with 2 Warlord Titans. Like I'm never going to do it. But every time I watch one of your
following along,
every time I'm watching one of your videos, I'm like, oh, I could legitimately do that. I could and that is infuriating. So I just want to let you know that I hate you. Because it's so like, what do you get? Like, do you generally get a lot of people who just want to try all the stuff you do, or what's the
so I always whenever I'm building a tutorial, building a miniature or building a tutorial, I'm always conscious of if it's doable, and obviously doable has a lot of caveats. Sometimes the components I'm using requires quite a lot of expensive parts and components and things like that. So it's not doable for everyone, but the idea of it is if you want to follow that tutorial, you can do. And some of the bigger ones that I do, like I did my Demon Russ, so I converted Amber into Russ. Awesome. Yeah, and I kind of did that, and I was like, okay, well, people might find some information, useful tips on sculpting fur or anything like that. And then about 2 weeks after that video went live, I saw someone who basically followed the tutorial and built something which looked like pretty much the same. And it was like, wow, actually someone was able to follow the steps that I put out. They painted it the same, they built it the same. It was very, very kind of well done that they'd managed to follow it. So yeah, it's always the highest praise, I think, when you make tutorials. And even if I'm trying to do the more elaborate, the larger scale stuff, I always try to make it so that people can recreate it and show all the steps that they can. It's not just a case of the whole kind of like drawing the owl meme where you draw 2 circles and then draw the rest of the owl.
One of my favorite memes.
Yeah. I try to avoid
one of the things I was going to ask was the like, do you like, obviously that happened with the Demon Rust, but does it happen a lot where you get tagged on Instagram with people copying what you've done, or is it more it's there in case people want to do it, but I would consider myself mostly an entertainment channel?
No, I often get people tagging me, even if it's not necessarily someone who's built the exact same miniature as me. They will take concepts. So I did a Valhalla Sentinel, and I basically part of that was just cutting out the hatch from the top and showing people how they can mount it as an open hatch. And I've seen people who haven't built it as a Valhalla Sentinel, but have followed that same open hatch thing because they wanted something a bit different in theirs. So again, even if they don't follow the whole tutorial, there's little bits and snips that people can get out of that. But yeah, I always enjoy when people tag me and stuff and they kind of follow my guides, because as someone who I mean, you said am I entertainment, or I mean, I hate the word really, but I suppose it's like edutainment. Some people watch me to find out what I'm building and what kind of crazy results I'm going to get, but then other people are actually wanting to learn something. It's always great when people do that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I was trying to go back this morning. I was like, I better just make sure I'm up to date with his videos, and I had to go as far back as your Gene Stealer cult with the banner conversion with the new kit. That's as far back as I had to go to find a video I hadn't watched. So they're genuinely quite impressive, and it is that thing of like, I wonder what he's going to do this week. I wonder what he's going to do. Like, it's a really brilliant like business model almost, because people are always curious about what in the blue hell is he going to do. And it was one of my favorite things that happened on Peachy's podcast is when you talked about the way you submit models to the Games Workshop thing, the community. And obviously there's it's like, before it wasn't that great because you couldn't really convert that much stuff, or else they wouldn't really post it. But now they love it. But then you have the complaint that I don't want people to see it before I put up my video, because I want them to be like, what's that blurry thing? Click, I need to know the blurry thing. So you don't want them to post it on. It's such a toss up about which better and more exposure there, or is it better to? So have you figured it out yet? Which one you prefer doing?
Well, I actually think they might have seen that podcast, because with the Leviathan, I converted up the Terminator captain to Caldor Drago, and so I sent them the pictures, and it wasn't featured in the article, so it was like, okay, maybe they thought, well, maybe we won't show. It's fine. But no, it is one of those things where it's quite a strange thing, because a lot of people will see me Pete the Wargamer stuff, and they don't necessarily always notice that twig that that's who I am. So sometimes people will see stuff on the community articles, and then they'll be like, oh, that was you on the community article. I didn't realize that was your name, because I obviously go by Pete the Wargamer, but and the articles tend to have people
instead of Mediocre Hobbies, it's Andy on the thing, and everyone doesn't
doesn't that kind of twig. And obviously they don't post back to like socials or anything like that, so there's no way that people can, unless they post as your kind of like alias, people don't always twig that it is. But it's fine. It's quite, not everyone sees it. I think some people who spend a lot of time in Warhammer community, and it's usually a couple of days between them. But it's not the biggest problem in the world, but it's just like one of those little I get a few comments every now and again saying, oh no, the end was spoiled. So
I think sorry, Andy, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was just going to ask, can you actually just build a model? Like, can you just follow a kit? Because like, that's not meant in a negative way at all. It's just like, are you always drawn towards that? Oh, I could do X, Y, Z, or make it. I'm very much like, if I have a kit, I want to build it once, so I know how to build it, and then the second kit I can do what I want with. But can you just build a kit? Like, do you have any armies? Like, what's your
So this is the problem I face. I just kind of, my main enjoyment from the hobby is in the converting and kit bashing. So for me, if I just build the kit as is, I'm always constantly thinking, can I add some stuff on? I can do this. It might only be small changes, but I'm always looking to think, how can I modify it? So even if I'm building some Primaris aggressors, I will probably still build them as Primaris aggressors. I won't convert them to like Chaos Terminator or anything like that. But I'm thinking, I can add some more pouches. I can remove this. I can add this extra detail. So I think the last amount of miniatures that I built, considerable amount of miniatures that I built following the rules of the instructions, was the I built a Horus Heresy army last year. With like Games Workshop had some of the content creators there. And I said, can I do some converting? And they were like, you can do some unit leaders and then the captains, and that's it. And you got to keep it all very subdued. So I had to build 40 Marines, 10 Cataphracti, a Contemptor, and a Spartan without doing any conversions, and it was hell.
I just want to point out, you are saying this under real duress. You did not want to do that.
I didn't. I would have preferred to. I mean, I was happy to build the army, and I think judging by how long it took me to paint them, it was probably better that I didn't do as many conversions as I wanted to. So it was a good thing in the end. But I was kind of at the time, like, I could do a lot with these. I could do a lot of cool stuff. But I guess they wanted to show off what the box was, and adding too many extra bits and conversions wouldn't do that. So yeah, I understood why.
I haven't actually gone back to the beginnings of your channel, but I've been watching since before you started painting things. You used to just do the conversion bit and then leave it. But if you go all the way back to the start of your channel, like, is this where you started? Did you start it as a conversion channel, or was it a hobby channel, or like, what was the humble beginnings and how did it become what it is now?
So it started off as a painting channel. Some of my earliest videos were around like painting up the miniatures from board games, like Zombicide was some of the first series. I dipped into like bolt action and some Mantic stuff at times. And yeah, the converting stuff was more of it's a fairly recent thing. And what kind of made me want to do more of it was it was around a time when I think Burning of Prospero or Betrayal of Calth or something came out. And so I did some painting tutorials for each of the legions, but just to kind of add a little bit of legion specific flair, I kind of converted the model, but I didn't show it in the video. I just showed the painted model. I was like, just in a quick head swap or a shoulder swap. And a lot of people were asking me how to do that. I was like, well, I've always converted personally, but I hadn't done it on the channel for probably most of its run. Because I didn't really think there wasn't an awful lot of conversion videos out on YouTube. And my interpretation of that was just that, well, maybe people aren't interested, maybe it's hard to get that across. And I thought, oh, I'll give it a go. And they started going down well. More than the painting tutorials did. So I started doing conversions and then skipping the painting tutorial bit. And then people but then people wanted to see it painted, so I would convert it and then show it painted, and everyone's like, well, how did you paint it? So it's got to the point where I am now, where it's like, here's how you take it off the sprue, here's how you build it, here's how you base it, here's how you paint it, and then it's everything in one video. So if you follow the instructions, you can get from a basic empty a basic sprue to the final model, and everything is covered in there. But yeah, that's only 3-4 years that I've been doing it that way, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you said, there's not a lot of other people out there doing it, and I honestly can't think of anybody else out there who's doing that. It's like, it is quite a unique channel. Like, I could throw a stone and hit 3 channels that I'd be like, do kind of the same thing that I do, and the same with most other people. But can you even point out anyone you think is kind of doing the same thing as you?
There are some probably, I think, some smaller channels. Kit Bosch was one of them. They did a lot of orc conversions. Who else? There's a channel called, I forget, is it called Kit Bashed? But it's not Warhammer specific. It's kind of like general model kit bashing. But there are a few channels. I think, it tends to be one of those things that other people will do every now and again. It's not something that everyone always does in every single video.
For sure.
But there's obviously Modern Synthesist, who is predominantly Tyranny kit bashes. But yeah, a lot of it tends to be on Instagram and Twitter. There's a lot of kit bashes converters, but they don't seem to have made that kind of jump.
There's definitely I think it's been maybe 18 months ago, there's been a real Photoshop kit bash kind of movement online. But obviously the cost as well is massive. I mean, in some of the cases, I know you get sent bits to, there was lots of resin bits in that Imperial Guard. Was it a Necromunda video you did recently, where you converted up the different different regiments and the like?
Bromlech sent them,
yeah, that's right, yeah. And I guess in that case you're working towards something, but I think, like, if you're a smaller channel and you haven't got that support, I guess it's really expensive for them to go and convert the lion or something like that. So
it is. I mean, there are lots of conversions you can do. Some people do some really good stuff with Space Marines, like very basic stuff, and even just conversion. I mean, I a lot of people always ask me what's the difference between a conversion and a kit bash, and my personal interpretation is that it's always, everything is like a conversion if it's a modification from an original model, but a kit bash is a particular subset of a conversion that uses parts from another kit. So you can do a conversion where you repose it, that's a conversion. You can sculpt new details, that's a conversion, but neither of those are kit bashes. So when it comes to doing stuff like that, kit bashes do require a lot of extra components. And while you do get a lot of components, if you're building an army, It's all components from that one army, and sometimes you need little bits from here and there. So yeah, I'm kind of in a fortunate position where it's worthwhile me going out and rather than buying a single component from a bits reseller or eBay, it's financially viable for me to go and buy the full kit, because I can be like, okay, well, I'm either going to spend £6 on these 3 heads that I need from this kit, or I can spend a little bit more, get the full kit, and then I've got all the arms, weapons, heads, extra bits.
So yeah. I'm not knocking the cost, by the way. I think if you want to build, there's always someone who. There's a big big AOS player. There was somebody on the scene in the UK a couple of years ago that was like a Tau, Idneth Deepkin, something else army all combined together, and it looks mental, like insane. Like it's one army, but you cost you the financial outlay of 3, so like really tough. But if that's what you want to do, who are we to tell you how to do your hobby? But I think it's really cool that you can, sit down with a pile of bits and come up with 6, 7 different guard regiments just because you got sent some hats and some, different head sculpts and stuff. And I think that's where the power of your channel really is. It's just that what can you do if you get X or Y rather than just build another Space Marine?
Yeah, and it's always something I've tried to help people with. It's one of those things like it's hard. You can't just tell someone to be creative. That's not how it works. You need to kind of show people what can be done, and then they can see when they see that it can be done together, kind of mental barriers break down a little bit, and they think, oh well, maybe if that works, then maybe something like this would work, and that's how you allow people to be creative with this kind of thing. And sometimes, like I said, I might put out a video, someone might only follow a small amount of it, but then when they come to do the next video, they might push something a little bit further because they've got a bit more confidence. Confidence and kind of allowing people to be creative is the main drive of the videos. I want people to see, yes, I might be chopping up these components that are expensive, and if you don't know what you're doing, you could ruin a bit that there's only one of in a whole kit. But if you watch me do it, and I'll show you where to cut and how to cut it and how to make those adjustments, then it takes the fear out of doing that. And gives people the bravery to kind of go out and do it themselves.
Do you do any like 3D printing or anything, or do you specifically only stick with resin and kits that are plastic and kits that are available from third parties?
So I have dabbled with 3D printing. The biggest problem with that is that, again, I because I want the tutorials to be accessible as possible. Not everyone has a 3D printer, not everyone has access to those kind of things. So I try to think, well, it tends to be people can buy 3D printed stuff like pre-printed stuff and resin components, but being in the kind of 40K part of YouTube and the Games Workshop part of YouTube, a lot of people, whilst they will use the components if they just play in local gaming stores, there are a lot of people who like to go to tournaments, and Games Workshop have very strict rules on what you can take to a tournament. It used to be, I think I vaguely remember it being like as long as more than 50% of the model was Games Workshop, you're okay. And it's like something like 10% or just on the base or something. It's really changed. Yeah, I think it might. Is it just on the base now? I think I remember reading something. You can maybe add a few little bits on the base.
So from my understanding of the last time I saw it, is if you can prove that you sculpted it digitally and you printed it out, they don't care. But
because it's technically as if you sculpted it from the green stuff, basically. Correct, just a different medium. But a lot of people don't have access to that. So if I can say, well, okay, you could just 3D print this specific head for represent the Blood Angels, but then if you can't use that in a tournament, well, here's how you can fill in the gaps on a regular. And you also
then can't supply that yourself because it's copyright infringement and everything else. So
exactly.
No, totally. Cool. No, I was just curious because obviously I love my 3D printer. I'm looking at it right now. I'm actually, my phone's here so I can stare at it while I'm talking to you. Yes, I just love it. But I do I wouldn't want to do a tutorial that required a 3D printer because it knocks you right down.
With that in mind, the idea behind obviously your videos are quite set in week to week. We get a beautiful model that you cut to pieces, glued together in some crazy way like a transformer, and then painted up beautifully. That has become your bread and butter. And that's what your community expects from you every week. Is there ever any week where you're like, God, I'd love to just do this, which is totally outside your wheelhouse, and you feel like I can't really do that because they expect this? Or are you just happy doing that each and every week? I'm not saying, because obviously it's quite different every week, so you wouldn't get bored. not like you're converting the same model every week. So yeah, I'd love to know what your thoughts are on that.
So I suppose I'm kind of going probably further than you expected with this, but I would, in terms of video content and making, I would love to make, if I had the time to, or if we could find the time to make a completely separate channel that was nothing to do with Warhammer at all.
Yeah.
I've got a big interest in how it's very kind of morbid fascination, but it's how Britain prepared during the Cold War for nuclear attack.
Oh, wow.
And how they had like all like the civil defense preparations and all the plans for what to do afterwards and all the bunkers and stuff. And I've got quite a big fascination with that. So I'd love to do a channel with that. And I think that if I got to the stage where with the videos, I was like, I'm kind of I need something else just to kind of like a brain sorbet, just to clear the mind and just get something different so I can come back to a bit more creativity. But yeah, that's probably what I would do if I got the time. But in terms of building miniatures, I love converting. And I think the great thing about converting is it can be so much more than just maybe painting an army differently, because you're fundamentally changing the look, the pose of the model, you're changing the silhouette, you changing the form of it considerably. And I think maybe if I just did painting, I would probably get bored faster than I currently do. But with converting, it's always another challenge. Am I going to be doing a vehicle? Am I going to be doing a large monster? Am I going to be doing a human, an alien? It's always very different each time. And when you come to paint, I feel, I mean, this is personally, I'm sure other people feel differently, but when I come to paint, I always feel like, well, I'm either painting organic stuff or I'm painting kind of inorganic stuff. There's two things, and the colors change vary, but there's not always a lot of difference. And I prefer the converting than the painting. So maybe that's why I see it as a bit more limiting in that regards.
Because you ever see like eBay Miniature Rescue, and every time he does a video that's not about rescuing miniature, there's always like a 3-minute segment where he like apologizes to his people that he's not. It's like, it's okay, we're not just here for that. And he's like, no, but I built everything around. I'm sorry, guys, I just want to really paint this thing. And it's like, it's okay. Like, stop apologizing.
I think that's the fortunate thing, that because I never set the channel up as Pete the Converter or Pete the Kit Basher, it's just Pete the Wargamer. If I ever did want to move into stuff, I could do. But I don't know if the audience that I've gathered over the last few years who've come along for the conversions would necessarily find it as interesting. But yeah, I think if I had to make other videos other than Warhammer conversion videos, it would be completely different. It wouldn't even be related to miniatures in any way.
Kind of like me, originally I wanted the name to be Mediocre Miniatures, but that was taken. So I changed it to Mediocre Hobbies. But it was actually another podcast with Goobertown Hobbies where he was like, I love that it's called Goobertown Hobbies because it's not tied to anything. I can just do whatever I want. And like, that's not supposed to be on your channel. It's just hobbies, man. I can do whatever I want in the hobby space.
Exactly,
It's very free. One other good question I thought I had, which I'm very curious about. Sometimes I produce a miniature or a video, and I think I'm getting to like, all right, deadline is now. This has to be posted. And I'm not that happy with it. And then someone else has to say, I'm like, you're just being too hard on yourself. Just post it. People will enjoy it. And then I do. And the comments like, oh, that looks great. Or I really like it. You did that. And you're like, oh, okay. I was just being weird. Do you have any projects where you got to the end and you're like, this is not good. I do not like this. And then obviously the community will be like, you're silly and it's beautiful. But is there any one where you're like, this didn't come together? Or...
So there have been times where I've built stuff and it's never seen the light of day. It's never been published on YouTube, just because I got to the end and was like, I'm not really happy with this. I'm not really happy with the way it's gone. But then there are other times where I've worked on something and I've not been as happy, but I've kind of posted it anyway. And then it's been like a really surprise hit. And I find that those tend to be the ones which I've stepped out of my comfort zone a little bit. So I'm not just doing a Space Marine or an Imperial Guard. So the one that I have in mind is the Tau Auxiliary, the kind of like the fungus-based alien. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to try something different. I don't really do much in the way of Tau stuff. I don't really do much in the way of kind of Xenos stuff. So let's give it a go. And I got to the end. I was like, I mean, I like it, but I don't know what other people think of it. Maybe I could have done a little bit more with it. And I posted it and people really enjoyed it. I think because it was different. It was a different take. So yeah, sometimes it is worth just kind of posting stuff. If you're not happy, because other people might think it is, but then there are other times where I felt that I've finished the project and I've like, I could have done that better, and I am going to do it better. And sometimes I've redone the video, I've come back later on and down the line and continued it. So the one that I did a Grey Knight kill team, And I basically, that started out as a single miniature, and it was like, oh, how can you make true scale Grey Knights? And I built it, and I built the miniature, and I painted it, and I got to the end, I was like, I'm not really happy with how the video is. And then I left it on a shelf for 2 or 3 weeks and kind of thought, maybe there's something I can do. And I kind of kept going back to it the course of a month or so. And then I thought, well, let's just expand it out into a full kill team and show people how it can be used in different ways. And again, that was another video that went down really well, and still probably, I think it's one of my most viewed videos.
I love that.
What's like your favorite, whether it did well or not? Was the favorite video you've ever done for the channel?
I think it was my Necrofex Colossus I did a couple of years ago.
That's so good.
Yeah, I think that was definitely outside of my comfort zone, because again, that was more of that came close to a scratch build rather than a kit bash in a way. Because to build it, I basically got the A-frames that come in the Skaven weapons and sawed away the individual planks. So I just basically had the planks and then reassembled them, which was hard. It was difficult, and it was time consuming, but I got the results that I wanted. And that was a build which I had no idea if it was going to work until it was done. I just had to keep on persevering. And when it was done, I was really happy with it. And yeah, it's gone down. It was probably one of my most popular videos up to that date, I think.
That trailer where they showed off the pirates, like everybody saw that trailer and was like, can we have everything you've shown off here in miniature form, please? Like right now, like, can we have that? And they're like, no. What? And then that trailer for that other game came out, which had like mist and fog and a ship coming in and the creek, and when we all thought they're giving us vampire pirates finally, and then I don't know what it was for, but it wasn't for that.
Yeah, no, it was. Yeah, I remember that one. I remember thinking the exact same thing. Oh, this is amazing, but no, they didn't. I think there's somebody on who is it? It's Captain Brineblood on Twitter, and they're basically building a vampire counts like a vampire coast army, and they're like, it's some really cool conversion work in there, and really if you like nautical pirate vampires and undead, really great person to follow on Twitter.
I follow them on Twitter already because I think I follow that army, but
I've just been flicking through some of the old videos here just to see if there's anything that I want to talk about. I think the maddest video you've done was the fat Custodes. I thought that was just you must have some crazy deal with YouTube, because you are always my next recommended video. If I'm like we've got a pizza oven, so every week I'll like stick on the Benjamin Babish where he gives his pizza recipe. I don't know why, I just don't remember it. And every single time the first one underneath it is Pete the Wargamer. So I don't know what you're doing for your algorithm, but keep it up. But
it's blood sacrifices, that's what it is.
It must be. It is, but literally came up again the other day, and I think it's such a mad video, because I understand why you did it, because it was like kind of like one of those guys in the computer game. But it's such a crazy thing to convert a Custode into a plague-ridden. Where, other than like, what's like the maddest idea you've had for a conversion that maybe you've not even done it yet, but that you would do anything to be able to build that thing?
It's interesting, really, because I do often get asked this, and I don't really have anything in mind, because whenever I do get something in mind, I tend to just go and build it. So I'm in a fortunate position where I can be like, okay, well, that sounds good. Like the idea that I had is a video that I basically will be starting work on after this next one. So I don't want to reveal what it is.
No, don't spoil it. Don't spoil it.
But so if I get an idea of something, I'm really kind of excited about this idea, I really want to build it, I just go ahead and build it and then put it on the channel. And then until I get the next one, I have like a list of ideas of what people suggested, what I've kind of thought of myself that I'm steadily working through, but it grows faster than I can make videos, so it's always going to be an end game. But going back to the Custodes thing, it's interesting, because one of the things that I do, and one of the things that I always find people enjoy watching, is when you go very much against the established lore. And so for example, like the Custodes, I mean, that's the interesting thing there, is because we only ever see them as these pristine, they're called golden boys, because they are literally the perfect embodiments of humanity or whatever. So for me to come along and basically like, oh, these are infected now, it completely breaks all the established lore about them, but it's an interesting idea. It's like an interesting kind of change to it. And that's always what goes down. Also, the Daunian heresy stuff, people expect Russ to be a loyalist. So I build him as a Khorne corrupted demon. People really enjoy it. And people really do enjoy that kind of thing because it's something a little bit different and it allows me to explore the universe in my own way. And I was funny enough, I was talking to Byron Ord from Otis Opus yesterday about this, and it's a strange thing where people will be really happy to see me make some Nurgle and corrupted custodies and be like, oh yeah, it's against the law, but that's fine. It's just a little bit of fun. And then as soon as someone pops like a female space marine on like Reddit or Twitter, everyone melts down like, it's against the law. It's against the law. It's like, I mean, I built an Angron Demon Russ. I built Comrade Kurz as a loyalist, and people don't really mind. People are happy with that. But as soon as it starts the MBB, people start. I mean, not
to go into it. My issue with female Space Marines is that no one does a good sculpt. Like, I love female Stormcast. I think they are fucking brilliant, and it's because they're different. Same as the Sisters Battle. I think those sculpts are excellent. I don't think they need like the big chest work, but like. It's a different proportion, right? And so give me a range, I'll take them. But
the kind of thing, the strange thing as well, which I always think when people are against female Space Marines saying, oh, the games which I'm going to resculpt them, I mean, they would just literally be the same models, but when instead of having those male unhelmeted heads, you just like I've seen people who just stick the Stormcast Eternal heads in there and they look great and they look fine, and it's not a problem. But yeah, as soon as that kind of topic comes up, people suddenly get very defensive over Warhammer's background, and they forget that there was once a librarian for the Ultramarines that was half Eldar, and it was like that wouldn't fly in modern law, but it existed back in the day, and things change and things adapt and change. So yeah, I think anyone who severely the law's great. If you enjoy reading up, that's fine. That people explore that as a hobby in itself. But if you want to build your armies based on that, perfect. Again, I've built miniatures which I've scoured through so much Wikipedia about the lexicon and stuff like that to find out to make this as law friendly as possible. And other times I just throw it out the window and do what I want. And if someone wants to build something differently, don't have a go at them just because you enjoy everything being rigid. And
I think the real thing with lore is that it is evolving. Like they're actively writing books and lore right now. If you want something that's set in stone, technically you've got Lord of the Rings, right? Because not only is it finished, but he's dead, right? So that is finite. That is what it is. We don't know. Like the lion didn't exist in 40k until. Well, he still doesn't really because you can't buy him. But, like the Lions, the last time we saw him was in 30k.
Yeah.
Then what happened? We know he's not dead. Is he? Maybe? Who knows?
He didn't exist until he does. And then as soon as they decide to bring him back, he does. And the same with if they bring back same with Gilliman, same with any of the Demon Primarchs that we haven't really seen much of. I mean, I think they changed the law for, was it Dawn? I think at one point, in the lore, they had his whole skeleton somewhere as like a relic, and that's just his hand because they want to keep that door open for him to come back. Which I imagine he probably will do at some point.
Yeah, but why not? Right? We'll all buy him. Yeah. So
exactly. Yeah.
Why not bring him back?
One of my favorite things about the Dorn's hand, and I think about this a lot, and I don't know why, it's such a silly thought, right? Well, at what point was the chapter master, whatever current chapter master was, whoever was the first one, was looking at the glorious holy relic of Dorn's hand, and he looked at it and went, do you know what would make that look better? Carve my name in it. What? Put my name on that hand? Everyone was like, you insane? No. And he forced them, and now it's a tradition, and every chapter master get. Who was the first who thought he was important enough to get?
Well, what are they going to do what are they going to do if he never comes back and they run out of space? They're going to have to start filling in some of the other names and like writing over them.
No, they just put like a really Halloween forearm just kind of after.
We found his arm now, guys. We found his arm. We're going to put that in there.
We know the conspiracy theory for new 40k is that, like, isn't it 3 or 4 pages in? You've got the Emperor on the golden throne, and he's no longer a skeleton. He's got like flesh and stuff on his skin now.
Yeah.
So
it's a really it's like the John Blanche one.
Yeah.
The painter.
Maybe,
so I think
maybe Dorn's
did
hand
do
just
two...
self-heals, so when Chapter Master dies, that name just erases itself.
Maybe it's like Doctor Who and they can regenerate from a hand. Maybe that's what it is.
There you go. Like Deadpool, it's just a hand. He's just glorious.
Yeah.
I honestly, with what you've said so far, I do like, for some reason, there's an idea for a video playing in my head, which is like you do my top 3 videos I never posted or my failed projects, and then have 3 things blurred. I think that'd be so cool to see. You get the footage of being like, I got to this point and it didn't work and whatever.
That would be the best April Fool's video as well, where it's literally you converting a model, but the entire thing's pixelated.
Yeah.
So the whole thing is like, all right, guys, I'm going to do X, Y, Z. And then, you just see the knife go in and the clippers go in. And at the end, you've got a model, but no one knows what it is.
One of the things that people have suggested for April Fools is for me to just build a model by the instructions and just paint them as instructions. So today, guys, I'm going to build an ultramarine
intercessor. Like,
yeah. Another thing was to take a model, so like a character model, and then convert that model back into the same character. So I don't know if you've seen, there's like a little meme thing going around on like YouTube Shorts and stuff, where someone said, "Oh, this is what it's like being in the US Army," and there's like a bolt in a sheet of metal, and they take the bolt out and they weld the metal back, and then they sand it, and then they drill a hole and then put the bolt back in. So I think that kind of concept of a conversion would work quite well if you just destroyed the model and then rebuilt it exactly how it was.
So I think you should do like a Space Wolf, and you're turning a Space Wolf into a normal Marine. So it's just a video for you, 20 minutes, removing dead animal bits from
yeah,
the
yeah, that'd be fun.
I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about dead animal bits as well.
Yeah,
because that's a very unique rating system.
Yes.
Where did that idea come from? And
so it's actually something that I keep meaning to bring back, and the problem is I kind of forgot. I got out of the habit of bringing it back in, of putting it in the videos, because it got to the point where most stuff was just 4 or 5, and I feel like, well, this isn't really a great rating system if there's only like hard and like a little bit less hard, and that was like the only 2 points on that scale. But yeah, so the actual dead animal bits kind of thing came around because I would be building a miniature and be like, okay, we can stick some extra details, just a few like dead animal bits, like skulls and bones and stuff like that. And I did that a couple of times, and people started saying like, oh, where are the dead animal bits, and like time stamping the dead animal bits, and it kind of just grew from there, and it became like a bit of a catchphrase in a way. But yeah, it's a kind of strange thing, and it's got to the point now where I think if you Google dead animal bits, it's like my videos are the ones that come up now, or my website, which is quite funny.
Right. Beautiful. I also have a weird conspiracy theory about you, and I don't know whether it's true or not and that stuff, but like, are you in cahoots with Duncan in any way, shape, or form?
No, I've spoken to Duncan on 2 occasions in my life, and that's it.
You're the only one who you use his paints so much.
Yeah,
they're great paints. I have them, and they're really good, but no one else uses them like you do.
Yeah. I have no idea why it's it kind of, because people said, oh, are you sponsored by Two Thin Coats? I'm like, well, they sent me a box, but I just use them. There's no I don't get any kind of kickback from using them, other than obviously if people use affiliates links. But so I got sent a box when they were kind of just getting product out into the UK, because they had the Kickstarter. And they said, oh, would you like to try some out? I said, okay, I'll go give them a go. I've already kind of, at that point I was using Pro Acryl quite heavily, so I was quite happy with those. So I thought, well, I'll give them a go in a tutorial. And yeah, no, I really liked them. They kind of remind me of Games Workshop paints, but they're in dropper bottles and a little bit more consistent across the range. So yeah, kind of just started using those, and I just keep using those. And other people who followed the videos, because they're quite similar to Games Workshop, it's quite easy to find alternatives. So even if you watch my video, it's Two Thin Coats, well, you can find approximations in your Vallejo, Army Painter, or Games Workshop.
Pretty sure when he brought them out, he did a conversion chart, didn't he?
Yeah, it's on the website. You just look it up, and it does it directly straight for. So
I think I had I should go to hand here. Yeah, so there's like a conversion chart which they sent, and it's like everything on this.
Citadel and Army Painter. It's the one I have.
Yeah, that's the one. And they also have like the different keys as well, so everything's in like these like trifectas.
That's what I did when I did a video on it. I was doing a video for Gamak, and I was painting like a rat ogres type thing, and I was like, you know what, for this entire video I'm not going to use shades or contrast, which is my bread and butter. I'm just going to try this Triad system. And when I was finished, I was like, to this day still think that's the best miniature I've ever painted. And I was like, these paints are awesome. Like, they're really good coverage. They flow really well. And then the Triad system, I think, works really well. Sometimes you hold your colors up, you're like, is that right? And then you use it and you're like, yep, that was right. It's really good.
Yeah, it's good as well for for beginners and stuff like that who maybe not sure what they should use as that kind of step up system.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's good, and I've adapted it for various different things. Sometimes if I'm looking for a slightly quicker scheme, I'll just do the base cut, the shade color.
Yeah.
And then I'll leave the mid-tone out and then do a wash instead and then do a highlight. And it's like a little bit of a quicker way of doing it, but it can be modified. But yeah, I just enjoy the paint, so I use them.
Cool.
But yeah, that's it.
I need to ask this question because we've done a few interviews this year, and I've never asked anybody. And then on like the Wednesday when I'm editing the video, I'm like, why did I not ask him? So what I want to know is paintbrush, paint, in your case, knife, clippers, hobby products you cannot live without, and sponsored or not, I don't care if you get paid for telling me, what should I buy if I want more? Like, what is it that's driving you? I know, obviously I talk to Andy a lot. He loves Artis Opus as dry brushes. Like, he loves them. We've talked about that extensively, blah, blah, blah. But what, like, overall, like, hobby products, what do you want? If I'm walking into a shop tomorrow to buy something new, what should I get?
So if you kind of want to do some converting, then one of the things I would always recommend is ditching hobby knives and going for scalpels. Because a lot of people are quite daunted by that fact, because it's like, it's a scalpel, it's designed to cut through skin and everything like that. But since using them, I've actually nicked myself far less because they're just incredibly sharp. They're really cheap, so you can dispose of the blades really easily, and just like put new ones on there. But yeah, it's one of those things where I've used hobby knives, I've used like official branded hobby knives and stuff, and they're never quite sharp. They're always a little bit brittle. And then they're usually more expensive to replace the blades. So you kind of keep using one for longer than you should do. And then you cut a little bit put a bit too much pressure on something, you slip, you cut yourself, or you ruin your model. So with scalpel blades, I just kind of swap them out for each project. So if I'm starting a new project, I'll put a new blade on, and it's really sharp and it just works really well. After that, I'd say clippers are a good thing to go for. I've always used the Redgrass Games clippers. A lot of people say God Hand clippers are good as well. I've not used them, but I think Redgrass are coming out with a new clipper. So it'll be interesting to try that out, see what it's like, because I like their old one. So it'll be interesting what this new one's like as well. But yeah, scalpels and clippers, always use them. Always, you're always going to find that going for a little bit of a better product in those areas tends to be better, because your blade, like your clipper blades, aren't going to be blunting as quickly. But yeah, I'm with you with Artis Opus paintbrushes as well.
I have tried to use the like other dry brushes from other companies. They are like the Army Painter ones, and it's like people say they're all the same. Just get makeup brushes, and I'm like, they're not the same. Like once you get your hands on them, you realize that they're shorter, they're tighter, they don't much like, and it just, if you use a makeup brush and do the same stip, because I love the stippling with it, it's more than the dry brush. But I love that mottled effect I get. If you do that with a paintbrush, with a makeup brush, it's just going to do this. And
I think some people look at the shape of them and say, oh, well, there's something which is similar to that, so it's just an expensive hobby version of that. I mean, I'm friends with Byron, so and I don't live too far away from where all the stuff is kind of shipped off from and everything, and they have like an extensive quality control. They literally have people looking at every single brush that they have to check that the points are right, that the shape's right, that it's curved properly, and if it isn't, it just goes into like a reject pile kind of thing. So there is a degree of quality control that you wouldn't get, and obviously I've spoken to Byron about how they're made, and they are very different than makeup brushes, and I can see why people would think that, but they are different. And I think if people try them out for themselves, they can see that there is a difference, and also learn how to use them. I'm going to plug the Artis Opus channel for that one, but actually learn how to dry brush properly, and your results will be night and day compared to the old methods.
Whenever anyone asks me, I say go to his channel and look at the the downed ATST and then the standing ATST. Those two videos for how to use those brushes is just unbelievable. And what he does and the layering, he goes back for the grey to the brown to the grey, and it all, and I haven't turned, like every time I paint tanks now, instead of like airbrushing the holes these days, I just stipple the hole. I get all like 3 or 4 paints through, and then the black, and then the chipping, and there's so much depth to the color, and I'll never go back. I love it so much.
Yeah. And it's more accessible than airbrushing, and you can get similar results to airbrushing as well, but you don't need to fork out for a really expensive compressor or airbrush or anything like that, and all the cleaning that goes into it and maintaining of an airbrush. So when people have said to me like, oh, can I do this with a regular brush? I'm like, yeah, but try dry brushing it. And I usually send them somewhere where they can learn how to do it in that way. So yeah, it's a good alternative to that one. And I think with obviously the rise of slap chop last year, dry brushing kind of got brought out again as being something that people can paint with and use, whereas airbrushing was like the big thing, and obviously contrast painting was a big thing as well. But yeah, it's just a different tool in the toolbox, and it's worth giving it a go and learning how to do it properly.
Yeah, for sure. Like, yes, long may it continue.